The age-old hobby of collecting Pokemon cards was a craze that everyone was doing in the late 90s. And believe it or not, the only reason I actually learned to play the game was thanks to a Game Boy Color title, Pokemon Trading Card Game, released in the year 2000, 98 for Japan. The game came amidst other popular Pokemon titles, such as Pokemon Stadium 2 and Pokemon Silver and Gold, so it wouldn't be surprising if you missed out on this gem. But basically, it's your favorite childhood hobby of playing with Pokemon cards the correct way, with a storyline akin to traditional Pokemon games. The game even goes as far as sending you to 8 different club masters, followed by battling the 4 grandmasters to inherit powerful legendary cards. Sound familiar? Speaking of sound, the game features a marvelous 8-bit soundtrack. The melodies are catchy, the use of sounds are creative, and the tracks are used strategically enough that it doesn't get too repetitive. The composer of this game is Ichiro Shimakura. Shimakura has worked on a few Mario Party games and Bomberman games under employment with Hudson Soft. His last credited contribution of actual music was We Party You way back in 2013. I want to thank you, Mr. Shimakura, for the awesome music. We will be breaking down the elements of funk from his track simply entitled Ronald in today's episode of Stick to Games. Hey everybody, Kenny Jr. here and welcome back to Stick to Games. Today's episode, we're going to be taking on the genre of funk. This track comes to us from a rival duel in the Pokemon trading card video game for the Game Boy Advance. Funk is the genre of drumming that uses a rhythmically intricate groove that cycles between using on-beats and off-beats. This groove is usually reinforced by the bass line, playing in a percussive style and kind of matching what the kick drum part is doing. This one is a fast funk, clocks in at about 140 beats per minute. But in my opinion, funk is a little more effective when it's played slower, typically between the 100 to 130 BPM range. That's definitely not a hard and fast rule, but some of my favorites, such as Aretha Franklin's Rocksteady, falls within that range. Then again, you have the James Brown I Feel Good that clocks in at about 135, but in breaking down this one, we're going to kind of identify the key characteristics of a funky drum pattern, and we're going to learn to establish that groove and that feel, and working together with our bass line. Let's dig in. So jumping into this 2-bar pattern, we can already easily identify the primary elements of funk, those cycling on and off beats like I mentioned. In the kick drum, we can see a pattern that uses these on and off beats, and the snare drum that weaves its way in between where the kick drum is, essentially filling in the gaps. So not only do we have this groovy kick and snare drum part on the low end, but on top of that, we have yet another staple of the funk genre, which is the open and close hi-hat that goes on every other upbeat. And this addition makes for a stone cold groove. The second part of the 2-bar pattern, it does kind of look and feel like a fill, but I would call it more of a flavor enhancer. We're just going to sneak in a couple of more snare drum hits in between our regular pattern. This particular fill actually sounds a lot like the fill from Streets of Rage Back to the Industry. So let's see how it works in a funk setting. And then we have a quick little transition. And then it goes to a slightly different section. Now typically, this would be a section where I'd say we open up and change our voices up. However, in funk, opening up sounds a lot different. As drummers, because we're focusing on the groove and staying in the pocket, we're not really going to change voices whenever the ensemble decides to do something a little bit different, like we normally would. We're just going to keep pushing that same groove. Now what's more common in funk is that you'll hear a drum break, where that everyone stops except for the drums and will either push a groove or do some kind of fill and bring everybody back to the top. In this composition's case, that comes in the form of these 16th notes here at the end of the exercise. So that pretty much covers everything we need to talk about with this one, so let's go ahead and try to run it top down. But in my opinion, funk is a little more effective when it's played slower. Funk is a little more effective when it's played slower. Funk is a little more effective when it's played slower. Funk is a little more Alright everyone, that just about wraps up everything we wanted to talk about here today. Hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please make sure to like the video. Also remember to subscribe to the channel to make sure that you can see all of my other future videos. Hope you guys continue to check back in with me. I really appreciate you watching my videos. Till next time.